Welcome, everyone, to our first webinar of 2020. I'm still getting used to saying that, but it's a new decade, and that means a new period of exploration, or maybe we should just say a continuing exploration of the relationships between the subtle energy of the body and everything that manifests in our thinking, our feelings, and in our physical well-being. The last years have been very exciting, and I'm really looking forward to this year uh, with a kind of special, I think, enthusiasm because the new things that I've been discovering. I think I mentioned before that I've had a increasing relationship with stones, uh, gems, if you will, special stones, and I have quite an array now in my center of my house, what we call the Brahmastan, the center of the building, that enhance so very much the energy of the house and the energy of the work that I do. Plus, I use the stones psychically. I don't move them, but I use them psychically to help people heal. Sometimes working on the chakra, and at other times, using them to heal particular things in their bodies or in their psychic space, that we just call it generally. So the work is continuing to be very exciting for me as it unfolds week by week. And I've had wonderful, wonderful clients to work with. Been able to work with some of the physical problems. It's winter and people have been breaking bones and hurting themselves. I've also been an accident or two, not related to the winter. So I've had some chance to help people heal from physical events that is very gratifying for me. I'm sorry that people have to go through it, but I think they feel much better when they find that their um, healing is accelerated and that the amount of time that they're suffering is very much decreased. So welcome to everyone. I'm going to start by talking about what we're going to do next month on February 11th. Again, that's a Tuesday. We're going to be exploring the relationship between the primordial emotions, sadness, fear particularly, grief, guilt, shame, emotions like that, and the chakra, and how those emotions, the energy of those emotions in the chakra, block the chakra, and then manifest as problems in our daily lives, problems in our being able to produce or manifest what we want in our lives, and to overcome whatever obstacles may be there. It's very interesting as a study how the things that are going on inside us emotionally show up in our lives, and a lot of times we don't see the sources of that. So I'm finding the study of this very interesting because it helps me to see past just what people say are going on in their lives, and to see the very root causes of those problems and to be able to address those directly. Because when you really want to fix something, you have to take care of it at its root, and then the whatever is manifest, and that could be a physical illness even, or it could be just a behavioral pattern or emotional turmoil or that sort of thing. um, Whatever is manifest can then be very quickly and thoroughly transformed. So it's very exciting work for me, and I'm looking forward to doing that. So please mark on your calendars for February 11th, Tuesday, February 11th. That'll be our next webinar. Tonight, we're tackling a very different kind of subject. I ran across something recently over the last couple of months. I've been reading about it. That raised the question, what would our life be like today if I had only known? If I had only known when I was very young what I know today. And we have lots of knowledge today and a great deal, perhaps, of experience with who we really are. That is our transcendental self. The jiva is the language in Sanskrit. who that transcendental self really is, separate from the body. It doesn't mean it actually is detached from the body, but it means that it is known in and of itself, not described by and not defined by our physical body. And it's a topic that I find really very interesting, both philosophically, but very interesting practically. And so, what we're going to do tonight is first, I'm just going to talk about it a little bit, and then we're going to go into the actual experience of who we might be if we had known what we know today when we were very small. And I want to start out that discussion with a very interesting concept, something I've watched as a pediatrician in my professional practice, and that was that children bring into this world certainly their unique personalities, but there's something even beyond who they physically are, who this body is, what kind of physical being they are. And what happens is that often parents sense that there's something there, but they don't understand it. Certainly, my parents, who had not, well, they were raising me long before Maharshi came on this world, and some of the other gurus that have been teaching knowledge of enlightenment, knowledge of pure consciousness, transcendental to our daily experience, our sensory experience, and our thinking. That knowledge just wasn't available. And so our parents, when we would ask questions, and the typical questions that children ask, and I'm talking about very small children, just at the point where they're learning to really speak. And they'll ask questions like, who am I? And where did I come from? Um, why am I here? Um, and usually parents, not enlightened parents, parents without that kind of knowledge, answer the question in very, excuse me, very physical and very pragmatic ways. So they'll say, if Jane or Richard asks, random names, if Jane or Richard ask a question like, who am I? They'll answer with their name. Oh, you're Jane or you're Richard. Um, and the communication focuses on them as the person in the body. And so the body becomes the focus of identification. I hurt, we say, instead of my finger hurts. We say, I am scared instead of saying, I experience fear. That phrasing is to suggest a separation between the experiencer and what is experienced. And of course, we can experience emotions, we can experience physical sensations, tastes, smells, things we see and hear, of course. Um, and the problem with that, in the language that many of us are familiar with, that Maharshi brought out, we call identification. We identify with the experience rather than with the experiencer. But what would it mean if our parents had recognized, what would it mean to us today and through our lives if our parents had recognized that what they were finding in that small child was an experiencer, not just a body that was animated and had a personality and was developing a personality. But what if they thought of it as an experiencer, a being in a body? And what if they were to answer that question, where did I come from, with an explanation like, well, your mother, or if you're the mother, your father, and I, the parent, we, the parents, um, took little bits of ourselves and put them together and let them grow into a baby. And I carried that baby inside of me so as to protect it and nourish it and allow it to develop until it reached a point where it could function on its own outside of my body. And then I gave birth to you. And then I took care of you. I nursed you. I fed you. I changed your diapers. I put clothes on you. I kept you warm when it was necessary or cool when it was necessary. I did all the things that parents need to do so that you could get to this point today where you can ask me these questions about who you are and where you came from. Are you already getting the sense that if you had gotten that kind of response to even that most fundamental question, where did I come from? That response that spoke to you as a being that was transcendental and separate, so to speak, from the body that of the small child. That the way you grew up would be very different. You would be seeing your experience as things going on around you, so to speak. You were in them, but you were separate from them. And you were drawing on knowledge, not just what you learned that your parents taught you or you learned through your experience of living in a physical world, but you were drawing on cosmic knowledge, cosmic intelligence, cosmic wisdom. Now, I'm assuming that today you have some experience of that, so you know what I'm talking about when I say it, that you know that you're living in this world, but not of the world. You are a being that is expressed in a body, and that body lives in the world, but you're transcendental to that, and that nature is guiding you. The intelligence of the universe is guiding you as it is guiding everything. And you may have a very profound sense of that as you move along in the world, you feel that something is guiding you through that, through the world, through what you're doing, and that everything else is also guided. Everything else is operating in this cosmic plan, under this cosmic intelligence. We sometimes call it natural law, that all of these things that function, all function according to laws, which, we can describe the effects of those laws, but we can't actually identify the laws themselves. We can't put a finger on them because, well, for one thing, all the laws are everywhere. There is no point at which they are not. And so there's no way of saying this law here because this law is everywhere. And so we're left at that level where we just operate in accord with natural law, not just spontaneous right action, but actual guidance by natural law, and that we have that sense of that. And imagine where we'd be today, how much more profoundly we'd be experiencing that today if throughout our life we had understood we are not our body. We are not Harriet and John or whoever, whatever names were given to us. We're not that. That's not who we are. We are something that is transcendental to that. The name is useful so that we can identify the body and we can identify the being in the body, the one who is responding to the parents or asking the parents the questions. It's useful to have a name, but we're not the name. We're not the body. We're transcendental to that. So think about that experience a little bit as you were coming up in the things that you faced in life, which seemed so overwhelming or confusing or just not working for you, all kinds of situations that we had. I was watching something on television and it just struck me, it was like the kinds of things teenagers were going through and, how lost they felt. And part of the reason they were lost, if you want to think of it from this perspective that we're talking about tonight, part of the reason they felt lost is they literally didn't know who they were. But what they had, it was a sense that the body that they were inhabiting was changing. And so they were this undefined or ever shifting thing, shifting in emotions, shifting in thoughts, shifting in physical feelings, and the change, it was sometimes practically day to day. during the peak of adolescence, when the peak of growth, physical growth, when the body was transforming so rapidly. I certainly have had experiences with my own children of having them come out of their bedrooms in the morning, and I look at them and go like, "You're bigger. You've changed overnight." And so sometimes it's even dramatic on the physical level how the changes are taking place. So imagine if you just think about navigating your adolescence, if you had had a more profound sense of who you were and could just be a witness to all this stuff that was going on, all the changes and the people and their fluctuating emotions and their difficulties handling things that were going on in their lives, handling schoolwork and social relationships, and again handling the physical changes in their body and the things they had to physically deal with. um, I am reminded today, for instance, of the experience of learning to shave. And there are all jokes about how we used to say, I've been shaving for 2 years and I cut myself both times. And of course I'm saying that because I've got this spot on my chin today because my razor attacked me, and it felt like I was doing an excisional or had done an excisional biopsy on my chin. You'd think it was a new shaver, but I don't know what happened. It just did. So the thing is, we have to negotiate. We have to learn to handle these new experiences. Um, so you know, uh, how we handled them and the ease with which we handled them was very much determined by how deeply connected we were to ourself. That's one way of saying it, or how self-aware we were. Not self-aware in the sense of, oh dear, what do they think of me? And what do I think of myself? Am I very critical of myself? That sort of thing. And being completely caught up in it, not really saying, am I critical of myself, but just criticizing myself, right? And blaming myself for everything that happens, and being very insecure and unsure about what was going to happen, or in some cases just being very confident and plunging into things and then going, what am I doing here? Why am I here? What's this about? I got myself into this, but here I am. um, and I'm not enjoying this experience. I want to go back again though to another situation that profoundly affects a lot of kids. And that is that when they're going through that stage where they're asking those very fundamental questions: who am I? Where did I come from? Why am I here? It's one of the questions parents can even ask a child who asks them questions like that, and saying, you've reached that stage, where you're now aware that you are here. And, when did you first notice when you showed up? And are you here, to do something special? Or are you here to learn about something that you want to know about? What is your purpose here? And that's a question if you pose that in front of almost any parent, they go like, well, wait a minute, children don't know why they're here. And one of the reasons we don't know that is because we never ask that question. And only an occasional child, it's really very rare, would ever say, I'm here to, be a great pianist. That's my purpose. I know that's why I'm here. Now, sometimes children will remember their, particularly their most past life, the one they just had, and they'll start to describe it to parents, and parents will often go, "Wow, what an imagination! Where did you get that? I can't imagine where that came from." And that's because they don't realize that, some children do actually, until they get to be about 5 or 6 years of age, may remember and have the verbal ability from about age 2 or so to relate their past life. That is, some experiences from their past life, some impressions that they brought with them. Or they may relate where they were before they incarnated in this lifetime. And that can happen, but they usually don't have words to express that. And parents don't help them find that. Was there a time when you just were and there was no thing there? You know, and the child might respond, oh, yes, I remember. I just was. I remember being. And that's probably the limit of what they could express. But parents can help them or could have helped them develop that vocabulary. So I wonder if maybe you've had some of those experiences, and we're going to explore that in just a little bit. Um, but one of the things that kids often encounter when they start asking these questions, and they get ordinary answers like, well, your name is Jane or your name is Billy. Um, One of the things that kids feel is that their parents don't understand them. They don't understand the question. And it's only a feeling. They know that there is something profound that they're seeking, some knowledge, but they learn very quickly that not only do their parents not don't know the answer, but that they really shouldn't be asking those questions. That their parents react to that in a certain way that says, I don't want to talk about this. I can't talk about this. Don't bother me with this kind of question. And unfortunately, parents often say, well, that's a silly thing to ask, or in some other way convey that you really, there's no way to talk about this. They just let it be clear to the kid. Now, one of the things I saw as a pediatrician, and it's a very unfortunate thing, I think, is that a lot of times kids come into this world with enormous capabilities that they clearly brought with them, and that represent a level of insight into themselves as a being and maybe even into their history in previous lifetimes. Um, and when parents don't get that, then the kid feels like this is not a source of information. I don't know how to connect to this person. Yeah, maybe they feed me and they hug me and they tell me they love me and all that stuff. And that feels okay, but there's something more that is needed, which is that profound understanding that maybe as adults we have found with one or a couple of other people where we really get them. So I wonder if any of you have had that feeling, my parents didn't get me. And that's a really important question, I think, for people who have been seekers, because most of us who have been seekers found that our parents really didn't get that part of our life. They may have understood us in many ways, but that part of us that was a seeker, that perhaps made decisions that were what we thought were supporting evolution, hopefully they were supporting evolution, um, that we were making those decisions, and our parents sometimes just held their breath or kept silent, and sometimes they didn't keep silent and gave us quite a bit of grief about going off on long meditation courses or going to some spiritual trek somewhere, to India or Nepal or some other, maybe the Chilean mountains or some other such place. They really didn't approve, and they let us know that they didn't approve of our seeking behaviors, our seeking knowledge. And what we were seeking was something that they might have provided us had they had some knowledge of their own, but they didn't have that knowledge. Hopefully, we can forgive them for that fact that they didn't have that knowledge. They just didn't know. But we came in with a sense of knowing that produced a degree of what we might call alienation, that we felt like aliens on the planet Earth. And I've known some people for whom that experience was extremely profound. They really felt lost as children. They didn't have a lot of friends, or hardly have any friends, because other kids just thought they were weird because of the way they were relating to the world and to other people. And sometimes they get labeled as, on the spectrum, autistic spectrum. Um, and they might be described as having poor social relationships, uh, which superficially may have been so, but what was going on is that they were extremely aware and extremely sensitive to what was going on in other people. And people didn't get that. They may not have even liked it if one tried to engage in that way. And so, they were pushed away. And so they felt literally like aliens on the planet Earth. Um, it's a very uncomfortable feeling. So I'm going through all of those things as a way of kind of warming you up to the possibility of exploring how you came into the world, what you had to deal with, and then thinking about if it had been different, how might I be different today? Where would I be in my understanding of what we call spiritual things? Where would I be in that understanding today if my parents had actually understood who I was and had responded to me and reinforced rather than negated my sense of my own being transcendental to who I was in this physical body and my experience, the things that I saw, smelled, tasted, uh, touched, and so on. So having laid that basic foundation, I'd like to see if there are any questions in the audience. There is a chat function on Zoom, and you can click down at the bottom. I don't see anything up yet, but I'm gonna click here. And okay, so I have my chat window open. So if anyone has a question and would like to, pardon me, ask it, you can type a message in there and it will appear in front of my eyes magically. Uh, I'm going to say, anyone in the room have a question? The thing is, I got this television screen in front of me that I'm talking into, and I can't see anyone. So if there's anybody in the room who has a question and would like to wave a hand or something to get my attention. Oh, yes. Okay. Says he can see me in the mirror over here. I can see him too if I look that way, but of course then I can't look at you folks. So I don't see any questions. So I'm going to draw the presentation to a close then. And again, just a reminder that on February 11th, we'll be looking at how our primordial emotions affect our chakras and give rise to specific behaviors that are compensations for our not being able to manifest and fulfill our desires. So I think it's going to be a really fascinating topic. I've very much enjoyed learning about it. And so that's where we're going to go there. So I'm going to sign off from the presentation of this, and we're going to continue on then with our group clearing session, and really go deeply into who we were uh, as children in entering a world that perhaps didn't really understand what we understood. And I invite anyone who's not continuing, who may see this online on YouTube, to, if you want to have a session with me, we can go through this experience one-on-one with you, and begin to remove some of those blocks to our well-being, to our creativity, that came from our feeling like aliens on the earth. Okay.